You guys, tell me this isn't the cutest PC case you've ever seen. Here we have it, a custom Bubble Cow pink O11D mini. So this case was sent to me by Velstrom. They make custom PCs and they collaborated with an artist to create a whole line of pastel bubblegum inspired creations. So they sent me the blue one and this pink one, and I'm gonna go ahead and do a build in the pink one for you guys. This is a huge throwback because the O11D mini was one of my first builds that ever popped off on TikTok, and I really enjoy building in this case. It's been quite some time since I built in a Lian-Li case, so I'm really excited to be building in this again. This one is just so cute. Like, every single panel is decorated in this bubble cow theme, and I think it's gonna look freaking amazing with the other parts that we have here today. All right, let's get into it. Here are all the parts for the build today. In total, this was about $2,500, but we did build it quite some time ago. The motherboard that Asus sent for this is the ROG Strix B760A gaming Wi-Fi motherboard, and I'm pairing that with the Intel Core i7-14700K. Now, if you are recreating this in present day, you could definitely use AMD parts for this. Asus has some really pretty all-white motherboards like the Strix B850, which will look so gorgeous in this build. Or if you're a little more budget conscious, they do have the Prime and Tough gaming lines, which also have silver heatsinks. And you could also go for a B650 and still use AMD Ryzen 7000 or 9000 CPUs. No matter what CPU you're using to install it, all you'll have to do is press the lever down and pull it out, which opens up the socket. And then what we're gonna do is match up the notches on the top and the bottom of the CPU with the notches in the motherboard or the golden arrow on the bottom left. Whatever you do, just make sure you don't bend any of the golden pins on the motherboard. Now, I like to just press down the socket and then remove the plastic cover, but you can remove the plastic cover beforehand if that makes you feel better. I would recommend keeping this though in case you ever need to ship your motherboard back for RMA. Patriot Viper did ship out 4 sticks of DDR5 for this, just to make the B-roll of the build look a little better with all 4 RAM slots filled out. But if you are recreating this at home, whether you have Intel or AMD, it's better to use a set of RAM with just 2 sticks for stability. So if you do want 64 gigabytes of RAM total, you should do a set of 2 sticks of 32 gigabytes each. And those would go in the 2nd and 4th slots. Patriot Viper also sent over the Viper Gaming VP4300 Lite SSD, which has read speeds of up to 7400 megabytes per second. Some of the newer motherboards nowadays have little latches that you can just press to install the SSD, but we're gonna have to unscrew these the old-fashioned way, and just make sure you unpeel the thermal pad before you install the SSD. This motherboard does have a latch that you just turn instead of having to screw the SSD in though, so that's convenient. Once that SSD is installed, we're gonna move on to installing the cooler bracket because it's just easier to do it while the motherboard is still out of the case. Today we have the ROG Ryujin III 240mm liquid cooler. This one has a screen on it, and it does come with magnetic ARGB fans. So after unboxing, you'll notice I only took 2 things out. One is the bracket, and then one are these kind of like standoff screws that are specifically marked for Intel LGA 1700. This bracket is just gonna go onto the back of the motherboard, and then you might have to hold it in order to get it to stay while you flip the motherboard over, but we're just gonna go ahead and screw those little standoffs onto each of the 4 posts. If you have an AMD CPU, this process is gonna look a little bit different, and if you have an older Intel CPU, you might have to use different standoffs, which will be marked LGA 1200. All right, now that we've got everything for the motherboard sorted, it's time to get the case ready. So for the O11D mini, all of these panels come off, and I am actually going to be using this electric screwdriver for this because it makes everything go by so much faster. It comes with a bunch of different little bits. I think this is the right one. Oh my gosh, you guys, my dog is here and he looks so pretty. The sunlight is hitting him perfectly. Oh, and he's leaving. He's had enough. I love using this just because it makes everything go by so fast, and there are 3 different torque settings. So we can just, top panel just slides right off. It's pink. I'll just set the panels right here. And then I think this one just slides up and comes off. Look at me, I'm a bubble cow. Like, really terrified of breaking that. Anyways, the front panel also comes off, but you have to unscrew some stuff. Actually, that might not be true. I think the front panel just comes off as well. Onto the back panel, this is what it looks like. This is also super cute. I'm just gonna unscrew these. Peasy. Okay, so in the back, there's a, oops, what is all this stuff? Okay, so these are supposed to be stuck. These are just like dust filters for the back panel. There's a hard drive cage here. I usually remove this because I haven't needed a hard drive in like years and years. So I'm gonna actually take this out because I'm gonna need that space for cable management. So it comes out super easily. Oh, also for cable management, it's a lot easier if you remove this. Don't lose this screw. Okay, so now we just have to take this out. This is just a thumb screw. And then you'll see there are just some screws here holding it in. And we can get rid of this. So the O11D Mini does support full-sized ATX motherboards, but you do need to install a bracket. This will be in the accessories box that comes with the case when you purchase it, and it's just this white little bracket that you'll have to stick into those slots on the case. I love that Lian-Li includes a plastic screw organizer with all of their cases. I actually use those to organize pretty much all the screws I have laying around, which is a lot after all these PC builds. Alright, not all of these screws are the same, so you do have to be careful. These are the screws you're going to use to screw the motherboard into the case, and then these screws without the little ring around the edge are the ones you're going to use to screw that little bracket in. When you slot the motherboard in, just make sure you match the I/O to that back rectangular hole, and then everything should kind of fall into place once you have it nicely aligned with the motherboard standoffs. So if it looks like things aren't really aligned, just keep trying because it should lay perfectly flat. I bought a 90-degree adapter for my GPU since I do have an RTX 40 series GPU for this. If you have an RTX 50 series GPU, it'll be the same. You'll just look up 12 volt 2x6 90-degree adapter, and you'll just really want to make sure that the orientation of it is the same as your GPU. So double check the connector on your GPU because if it's upside down, your adapter might not work. Definitely look up reviews though, because the last thing you want to do is light your GPU on fire. I also got white cable extensions just to clean up the entire build, and these are some of my favorite ones. I believe they're from Asia Horse, and I order these all the time because the gauge of the cable, like the thickness of each cable, is pretty thick, and I feel like it looks so premium. And I do love how the connectors and the cable combs are white too. And if you're confused on how to install cable combs, here is a quick overview on how you do it. I've seen people do all kinds of crazy stuff, and it is just preference which side you want to stick out, but just like make sure you orient it correctly so that all the cable combs are facing the same way if that's going to bother you. Otherwise you're gonna have to redo it. And I'm just doing this because once the cooler is in, it might just be harder to plug everything in. So I'm plugging in the extensions and then routing them to the back of the case so that when I install the PSU towards the end, all I have to do is connect them in the back and I don't have to struggle to like fit my fingers into small corners or anything like that. For the CPU power connectors, or they might be labeled EPS on your power supply, those are in the top left of the motherboard. I'm actually connecting those with just the stock power supply cables because with the AIO mounted on the top, you're actually not really going to be able to see them anyways. If you don't want to use cable extensions at all, I would recommend the Lian-Li SP750 or 850 in white. That is a small form factor PSU that Lian-Li has. For this build, Asus actually sent over their ROG Loki one, but I know it is pretty pricey, so if you're balling on a budget, it might not be the right one for you. And that's the only drawback to the Lian-Li O11D Mini V1. While it does fit an ATX motherboard, you do have to use a small form factor power supply. So back then, if you wanted to use a full-size power supply, you had to get the Lian-Li O11D Mini Air with the vented front panel instead of glass. But Lian-Li is actually coming out with the V2 of this case really soon, which will actually be able to support a full-size power supply, which is super exciting. Since this is a TikTok build, you already know we had to use the Lian-Li Unifan SLs. I loved using these. I love how you barely have to cable manage since all the fans just slot in together. Nowadays, they do have some pretty good dupes on Amazon though. You can probably get a 3-pack for like $35. The nice thing about these fans is you can just use one cable to control 3 of them, and in some of the kits, there's actually cables to connect like sets of 3 together. Also, I lied. I totally forgot. You can't even mount an AIO in the top of this case because there's literally no space with an ATX motherboard. So I actually ended up mounting these 3 Lian-Li fans to exhaust in the top, and then I will end up mounting the AIO, I think, to exhaust from the side. You can fit up to a 280mm radiator, but I ended up just getting a 240. And then on that back, for the single fan, I am intaking. To mount the fans to the case, we're going to use the screws that came with the fans, so these will be in the Lian-Li fan box. Now it's time for some minor cable management. Starting off with the HD audio connector that's always in the bottom right when you're facing the back of the motherboard, but when you're looking at the front of the case, it's on the bottom left. And then this one is for the front panel USBs. That's usually on the right side of the motherboard, so from the back it's on the left side. This is also another front panel USB connector, same place. It's literally one right on top of each other, usually right under the giant 24-pin motherboard power connector. This is the front panel power connector. This is what you're going to need to be able to use your power button, and that's usually on the bottom, somewhere towards the middle right side of the motherboard. Now it's time to install the CPU cooler. So this Asus Ryujin III cooler actually comes with magnetic fans, but because we have Lian-Li fans, I'm actually going to end up installing these in the bottom of the case. That's because the design on this custom Veldstrom case pretty much covers the bottom 50% of the case with a design. So pretty much anything under the GPU you won't be able to see from the outside, so no one's going to notice if your bottom fans look a little bit different from the rest of the build. And we're gonna wanna make sure these fans are intaking, so we're bringing air into the system, which means we're gonna want the ugly side facing the inside of the case. This is a super premium cooler and the packaging and price reflects that, but I do love how Asus ships a plastic protector on their radiators to ensure that nothing messes up the fins, because that would affect your cooling. So we're going to carefully remove those plastic covers and then install the Lian-Li fans onto the cooler. We are going to want to exhaust. So normally you do want to exhaust using your AIO because you're pushing hot air through it. So you don't really want to pull that hot air back into your system. And these black screws came with the cooler. So we're going to use those to install the fans onto the radiator. In the cooler box, you'll also find some shorter black screws, and that's what we'll use to screw the radiator into the case. And now we're finally ready to install the actual cooler onto the CPU. The cooler will have come with 4 giant nuts and the screen actually does pop off. It's magnetic. So to make things easier, we're just gonna pop that off and then screw on the nuts in an X pattern. So top right to bottom left and then bottom right to top left, because you want to evenly distribute the pressure and not like tighten one of them all the way, because then you won't be able to get the rest on properly. Because we have so many USB devices between the fan controllers and the LCD on the AIO, we do need a USB splitter. But here we are just doing some cable management of the Lian-Li fan controller. So this is what we're going to plug all the Lian-Li fans into in the back in order to control the RGBs and the fan speeds and everything. There's usually ARGB headers on the top right and sometimes in the bottom of your motherboard, depending on what kind of motherboard you have. Some of them have less, but they are so hard to put in. Just be patient and try to look in different angles, like look on the side to make sure everything's aligned before you force it in, because those pins are super easy to bend. And also make sure you're using the right header, because for these cables there should be 3 pins only, not 4 pins. So if you try to plug it into the wrong one, you're going to break either the connector or your motherboard. Now with most of the cable management out of the way, it's time to install the power supply. This Asus power supply is so pretty with the little mirror on it, and it's honestly a shame that no one's gonna see it in the back of this case, but it does have a 12-volt 2x6 connector for the GPU directly in the power supply, which is super nice. You don't need any of those ugly little adapters. That's honestly a must, I think, if you're getting an RTX card, because those adapters are not it and they're low-key a fire hazard. Your power supply usually has the screws you'll need to mount it, but it's 4 of these screws. It also comes with a case if you need them. Now, normally you can't plug like extensions or anything directly into the power supply, like you physically aren't able to, but with the 12-volt 2x6 power connectors for GPUs, you can actually plug those directly into your power supply. I used one of these for my PC for over a year without any issues. But if you want to be more on the safe side, you could just use the stock one as well. Honestly, let's just ignore my whole cable management part. Once you're done managing all of your cables using Velcro straps or zip ties, we're gonna put that bracket back on. To install the GPU, we're gonna have to unscrew this side bracket and then also unscrew these little dust covers. For the GPU I'm using, we only need to unscrew the second and third ones. And I have the Tough Gaming 4070 for this build. The white Tough Gaming cards are genuinely some of the prettiest cards ever. I'm like crossing my fingers hoping I can get my hands on the 50 series one of this. You're gonna wanna make sure the bracket on your motherboard is open before you try installing your GPU, and make sure the cover on the PCIe of your GPU is removed. Then all you have to do is slot it in, connect the power cable, and then make sure you re-screw the 2 screws on the side. You guys, the PC is pretty much done. Can you believe that? It's honestly looking really clean. This is the cable management side. There's not that many cables to manage, so that was really easy. And here's the back panel again. We're just gonna put this on. Yeah. Peasy. And then the front panel. Look at the cow. He's so cute. Oh, there's some plastic here, but because I might give this away, I'm not gonna peel it. Okay, so the Asus fans that came with the AIO, I actually ended up putting on the bottom because, as you can see, you can't actually see the bottom fans on this. So that's a good thing about this case with this design. You could literally put whatever ugly extra fans you have on the bottom just for airflow. And then I had 6 Lian-Li fans, so I put 3 on the top and then 2 for the AIO and 1 on the back. Not that I think the Asus fans are ugly, they just don't match, and I only had 6 Lian-Li fans and I was not about to buy more. Like ideally, if Asus sold those magnetic fans separately, I would just use those, but I don't think they do. All right, here's the top panel and then we can turn it on. What is happening? Oh wait, I'm stupid. This goes here. All the thumb screws are low-key hella hard. These are not thumb screwable. Cable. Flip this on. Oh, the power's here. Oh, some of the fans aren't lighting up. I wonder if they got disconnected. Wait, none of the Lian-Li fans are lighting up. I can hear the water in the cooler too. Okay, so it powered on the first try, except the Lian-Li fans aren't lighting up, they're spinning. So I think it's a software issue. So I'm gonna go ahead and download Windows and hope that once I get everything set up, it fixes itself. Because I've tested these fans before and they worked, and they're wired properly. If they weren't, the fans wouldn't spin. So fingers crossed. And here's what the finished build looks like. The Lian-Li fans actually did start lighting up once I downloaded L-Connect 3, and I ended up putting a super cute GIF on the cooler, which you can do through the Asus Armor Crate software. I'm actually obsessed with how this came out. I'm actually low-key sad because I ended up giving this away on TikTok. I'm so jealous to the winner because this looks better than my current PC probably. When I did the giveaway on TikTok, I actually asked everyone to vote on which one was their favorite, so I still do have one of these cases. It's literally somewhere like in my storage unit, and I can't remember which one I gave away and which one I kept. I want to say I kept the Icy Dragon one and gave away the Bubble Cow one, but these are so cute, guys. Should I do my own custom case? I'm like getting so inspired by this girly pop case. I love pink, but if we're being honest, I feel like the light blue eats. Like it looks stunning, breathtaking, gorgeous. Like I love this so much. I think it's the lighting too. The golden hour lighting really makes this. Anyways, let me know what you guys think about this build in the comments, and let me know if I should build in one of the other colors that they have, because I think they have like a fox and a frog one too, and like a bunny or something. And if you don't want to miss out on the next PC giveaway, be sure you're following me on all my socials or even join my Discord. I'll see you guys next time.